thereby almost immediately creating losses for the taxpayer. And what does that mean? Well, let's say you had a AAA bond, and it's never been marked to the market because there really isn't a market. And so what you do is you guesstimate. And so heretofore we'll say that that particular bond guesstimate, was 70 cents on the dollar, when in fact it was really worth 45 cents on the dollar. And so the government, via the Fed, takes it in and takes it and puts it in that fund, and almost immediately it drops to its real value if they wanted to sell it. So all of those losses are going to accrue to the American taxpayer. It's a shift in losses from private interests to the taxpayer.
And really what we're doing is making sure that the rich get richer, and of course the very people who created this whole problem and want to destroy our nation, these powerful banking interests that are tied into the Trilateral Commission, whose loyalty is not to America but to this internationalist dream, they're the ones who are going to, of course, come out well. In fact, that was what the third report of the Congressional Oversight Panel said. You can find it up on the Internet, that actually the government, and the figures are a little, don't hold me to it, but the government had bought for $240 billion. Assets were worth about $176 billion. So the government had paid over $66 billion more than these assets were worth. And who comes out well? Why, of course, the banks do, because this is really what it's all about. Why does anybody think that Henry Paulson demanded that $700 billion back in last October so he could bail out the mortgages, and then turned around and gave it to his friends in the banks? But he couldn't even give away the full $700 billion. He did not need that much. Well, $350 billion is still out there. So Timothy Geithner, who comes from the banking interest, is going to, of course, to find out how he can give it to his friends. And what happens whenever you have power? It's going to be misused. And you're seeing, I think, the greatest transfer of wealth in all recorded history, from the average American and his future and his grandchildren to the extremely wealthy. And I certainly believe in the free enterprise system. I certainly do not believe in socialism, but I believe there are wicked and people out there who push socialism and push big government so they can profit. And you can go right down and you can find the membership list of the Trilateral Commission at augusreview.org. Go there and find out how the bankers are part of this little clique that controls our government, whether it's the Republicans or Democrats, and certainly they control the Obama administration. They're in all the really key positions, and yet not one word of it in the controlled media. Go right ahead, Bob.
Well, I think you've covered that pretty well. The reference was the Congressional Budget Office is what said that we were rooked out of $68 billion. And that's a government agency. And so they're like an IG, an Inspector General.
You're right, Inspector General, right.
And so their figures they come up with are usually pretty accurate, if not totally so. It just shows you the terrible, terrible, terrible theft that's going on. And then when questioned about it, they say, well, we don't have to tell you that. It's a state secret. And, it's so laughable. This is not a republic or a democracy. It's a fascist corporatist government is what we've got. I
thought it was more like a kleptocracy, that's where they steal everything. But people really have to understand that you can check this out on the Internet, that the Fed has given away $2 trillion. Now, this is irrespective of all these other things we talk about. I mean, we're close to giving away almost $10 trillion. Nobody ever asked where the money's coming from, because the money doesn't exist. They're simply creating it out of nothing and adding it to our national debt. And our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, if we have any, will be stuck with the bill. But this is the most incredible thing. There's $2 trillion that Bernanke has given away, and he will not tell anybody where it's gone. because it's a state secret. It's a trade secret. What insanity is that? I thought we were going to have a transparent regime. Sounds like the same old Bush regime is right back in power. Only we got a better-looking president, I'll admit.
Well, as you said earlier, it's Team A coming in for Team B.
Right.
And that's really what it amounts to. And, we're watching General Motors and Chrysler, which have received bailouts. And now they're talking about General Motors taking on their former, we'll call it subsidiary.
Oh, that's Delphi, right.
Delphi.
Right.
And now the government's talking about taking Chrysler and General Motors into bankruptcy to protect their investment in the companies. And, of course, Ford is kind of on the edge. Ford's been smart. What they did outside the country in order to get rid of their inventory, and most Americans don't know this, they have been selling automobiles at 75% of sticker price. So you get a $32,000 vehicle, you're going to pay $25,000 for it. And they very successfully have cleared off a lot of inventory, and I would guess come out at cost. Maybe they made a little bit of money, I don't know. But the others were continuing to give these discounts, and they're just not working anymore. And this manufacturing problem with vehicles is going to go on for years. There's going to come a time soon when there'll be just several manufacturers worldwide. And that will be coming at a time when people are getting deeper and deeper into debt, into bankruptcy, losing their jobs, and so there's little hope for revival. But at the same time, I see the beginnings of trade war, protectionism as it's called, and the changing of tariffs both on goods and services. And quite frankly, that's what America needs. And again, I'm the only one out there that says this. All you hear is negativity toward it, and the fact that they say it caused the Depression during the 1930s, which is entirely untrue. Entirely untrue.
Well, I think, of course, the thing is that there really are people who want to destroy our manufacturing base, who want to destroy this country. That's why they did away with tariffs. That's why they're pushing global warming, so we'll have to deindustrialize America. That's why they're transferring our jobs overseas and giving money to General Motors so they can become the largest manufacturer in other countries. Go right ahead, Bob.
But anyway, part of the stimulus bill was to bail out insurance companies. These would be different kinds of insurance companies. And also, not only life, accident, health. And we've already seen money go to the Hartford Group and to Lincoln. Is it Lincoln? Yeah, I think it was Lincoln. $3 or $4 billion. When they accept money like that, they're on the verge of bankruptcy. And so within the stimulus package will be funds to help those companies that are about to go under. And it's not going to help the situation. It's just going to elongate it, extend it. And so that's something that we're going to have to deal with. Wages are low. They're not going up. And quite frankly, I think that the wage levels are going to start dropping. I mean, you're going to have an awful lot of people unemployed who would be willing to work for just enough to subsist, wage-wise. And we saw that during the Depression and other hard times. And I can remember in the late 1930s that my father made $20 a week, which is about $90 a month.
My dad made $100 a month. I'll remember that, and I can remember, of course, we could buy pot roast at 35 cents a pound, and I love pot roast. That was the high point of the week when we had pot roast during the
You
Depression.
escaped the spam,
Right.
which is the big item during the Second Great War. But incidentally, a loaf of bread was 5 or 10 cents, depending upon what you bought, and the newspaper was a penny. So I think we're headed back in the same direction. Most people don't know that during the 1930s,